Let's try this together. Ready? Begin. 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 Begin.
I was a geography major when I was a student, and so I was always interested in environmental issues, and then I kind of was looking at ways to link my interest in ethnic studies and Chicano studies with environmental issues. And so I've done research like on pesticides. My dissertation, one of the case studies was the early pesticide campaign of the United Farm Workers from 1965 to 71. We've used pesticide in this country in huge numbers ever since World War II. And for the first 3 decades, essentially, of our usage of pesticides, there was never any protection of humans, particularly workers, of pesticide use. So there was laws protecting wildlife, there was laws protecting water, there was laws protecting crops, there was laws protecting consumer market issues, right? But no one ever thought to protect the people actually applying it and who then have to go back and work in those fields. Or they might have thought about it and they said, let's not bother with it. So in any event, it was an example that these people, given their largely Mexicano Latino farm workers at that time, they just didn't enter into the radar of the calculus of policy decisions and regulations. I would define environmental racism, this is according to me, other people might disagree, as the disproportionate impact of people of color to environmental hazards, as well as their historical exclusion from the environmental movement, as well as their historical kind of erasure from policy issues and decisions. And so it's important to understand the different ways that racism may actually work in creating these geographies of environmental hazards and inequality, which disproportionately affect working class people, which are one and the same here in Southern California. People of color are the working class for the most part.
So with Common Vision's Fruit Tree Tour program, we have the opportunity to go to a lot of communities to work with students who haven't had an opportunity to get their hands dirty, to garden, to plant. And at first there's a lot of resistance, like I don't want to get my shoes dirty, I'm not touching that. And you see over the course of the group, as you're digging in, some students will break in and they'll be bold and they'll grab soil and they'll smell it, and suddenly by the end of the group you'll see all the kids with their hands in the soil, planting the tree, packing the roots in, and inspired to do this little simple thing that really helps take care of their community and the planet. I would say overall there's a building of excitement, the mystery of getting down there in the soil kind of brings the adults down onto the kids' levels of just getting in awe and just being, catching new little bugs or worms or whatever it is that's going on in the soil as you're packing it. There's a connection there. There's a connection with once your hands are in the soil and you're packing it down and you have the context in your mind of we're doing this for community, we're doing this for the planet. There's transformation there for both the kids and the adults.
So maybe we could all take a deep breath and breathe on the plant and give it some carbon dioxide. I feel like children really love to have their hands in the dirt. They love the music. They love expressing themselves, and it's giving them this opportunity to really get in touch with themselves, really, because we all are part, of this process of nature.
Almost every single garden I've done now, it's usually the kids that are there first. They're the ones that show up, even if it's the front lawn gardens. Like the very first one in Kansas, in Salina, Kansas, not a very big town. Here are kids that live in the middle of farm country, and yet a garden for them was the most novel, exciting thing they could imagine. Like they were really excited, and there were about 7 of them that were there every day, really eager to be involved. As soon as you show up with rocks and dirts and shovels and plants and you're making a mess and everyone's out there, they get really enthusiastic in a way that the adults usually don't. Ultimately, what I'm interested in are these gardens, and if you look at the core of this project and a lot of the other projects I'm doing, maybe others dealing with animals and things like that, if you look at the very center of the project, it's just life. So all the work that I'm doing in some way tries to pay attention to it and consider it in some way. And in each garden there's been very different situations to deal with. And then, you know, I suppose the garden in Baltimore, that was one of the most recent ones, which was actually pretty conflict-free. I mean, that garden's been a real pleasure, and it's still doing well, and all his neighbors love it, and they're starting to grow their own food in his garden because it's so big, and he can't even you know, eat everything it produces. If you read a lot of the text associated with the project, I suppose it does come off as this activist movement encouraging people to remove their lawns and plant gardens, which in some ways it is, but it's also a way of communicating a possibility and having that possibility capture people's imaginations. So on one hand, it seems like I'm trying to convince everyone to do this. Actually, I'm not necessarily doing that. I'm using the project as a vehicle to talk about something. Instead of dismissing the suburbs or not taking them seriously, I'm really interested in looking at what resources they have that are really unique. And it so happens the front lawn is a pretty amazing resource. It's this open bit of land that's really public and visible, just sitting right there for other possibilities, and it could be growing food, but there's a lot of other things that could happen there. But the point is that it's a very it has a lot of rich potential.
I think it's having a really positive effect in the community. I think the people that come by are really positive about the project and really happy that we're here. And I know that I've seen figures that City Slicker puts out in the annual report, you know, that we definitely do have an effect on people's eating habits. Like we help get fresh vegetables into people's diets. Recently, a lot of people have forgotten how to do it, or, you know, in general, society has moved away from it, many people. So it brings us back to the land, and that's a good thing for people, and that's healthy. And it makes you feel more independent when you can grow your own food, and that's a great feeling.
First of all, I've always felt like people who are less advantaged are usually targeted, and in their areas they never provide the best for them, they provide the worst. So as a result of that, the grocery stores are further away. There's no nice big grocery stores in the area, and you know, it's not easily accessible. So it just made me think about that more, and it also made me want to do backyard gardening more. And I had so many vegetables. I absolutely loved it. I don't visit the grocery store often at all. If they see me once a month, it's good, because I can buy some meat, you know, and put it in the freezer. But fresh vegetables from right here at the stand every Saturday. I was kind of borderline diabetic, and I'm not borderline diabetic anymore as a result of eating fresher, or eating more vegetables, I should say.
I was doing landscaping, and I had like a real serious injury. I dislocated and tore tendons in my left shoulder from a fall, and I couldn't work for 8 months. It was right at the start of the season. It was like in April, and so I missed the entire like work season of doing landscaping, and I lost my place to live, and I didn't have an income. I ran out of money, and I was just basically living in my van and eating in soup kitchens. And I decided I needed to make a change and get something going, or else just go off the deep end. A lot of us have been really successful. I mean, I've been in a situation where I've been making $100,000 a year, and ditto a couple of other people, who are working here now, but just because of circumstances, and because there is no real social safety net in this country. I mean, they pretend like there is one, but there isn't one. I mean, the best I could do is get like $140 a month in food stamps. Whoopee. I mean, there's no housing vouchers that you can get right away, or motel vouchers. There's no income support. I mean, unless you're disabled, you know. I mean, like SSI, seriously kind of permanently disabled. I mean, the most the county will offer you is $140 a month in general assistance, and that's a loan. And they do everything they can to make sure you don't get it. It was really just like, I found all this stuff out because I had never been in this situation before, and I was completely disgusted because there is no social safety net. You know, people think there is, but there isn't. So this sort of became my safety net, you know, right here. And what's amazing is we don't get any, we only get 2% of our money from the government. You know, you gotta wonder what all that government money is going.
What I see is and again, I'm not an expert on this, but what I see is lots of clusters of activism, of local-based activism, which is really proactive and very, very positive. I think there's all kinds of benefits to be had from pursuing and developing community gardens. To what extent they're going to come together, I think that's a question about whether there'll be a social movement. Again, I think it could be a really powerful social movement for good in so many different ways. I think, for one, you know, it's obviously providing food for communities that really need food. And again, we know that, for example, particularly in barrios and particularly in ghettos and black spaces, there is a real lack of quality, affordable food, particularly produce. So people eat a lot of junk instead because that's what's available, right? So it's just providing food. Two, it's like kind of reclaiming land, right? Going over, taking up space, and this is our land through various kinds of ways. People are acquiring it. Three, I think it's a very, it's an empowering thing because people are actively doing it for themselves.